Thank you to CanMar, incredible organization, for organizing this and allowing everyone to connect and have this panel. I'm so lucky. I got to talk with Ian, and now I get to talk with Shlomo. Shlomo and I had a fantastic conversation this week, and the best part for these conversations for me is I get to learn so much. And so what I want to say to the audience and whoever's watching, listening in, please ask as many questions as you possibly can. Shlomo is going to teach us a lot, and I'm very, very excited. So while you formulate your questions and all of that, why don't we get into it? So again, here we have Shlomo. Shlomo, give us a 60, 90-second rundown of who you are, what you're currently doing, you're quarantining in Oakville. So tell us a little bit more about where you just got back from, and let's start there.
Okay, so originally I'm from Israel. I study agriculture in Israel, and I'm an agronomist, and I worked in a couple of good companies in Israel. I had offered to move to Australia. I managed a big farm in Australia for 3.5 years. Then I moved to another project in Portugal. I managed a Portuguese farm for about 10 years. We're exporting plants from Portugal to Europe. It was very high scale. We did about 250,000 plants a week. We did it for 10 years. So I did really millions of plants. In 2002, I immigrated with my family to Canada. Initially, I worked in Vancouver in BC. And in 2010, I moved to Ontario. I worked in Ontario for a couple of years. In 2013 or late 2014, I don't really exactly remember when, Tilray was the first licensed producer that got a license. They had a couple of growers that, one grew 20 plants, another grew 30 plants, but no one knows how to do 50,000 plants or 5,000 plants. And that's where my expertise were needed. They approached me and I moved to Nanaimo to help them set up the facility. I worked there and basically set up the facility for about a year. Then I moved back home to Ontario and I joined another company that was in 2015 now. MedRelief, I'm sure some of you have heard them. They just recently sold for $2.3 billion, and obviously I left too early. So I did the same in MedRelief and also worked there close to a year. After having MedRelief and Tilray under my belt, I decided to be kind of very high profile in the emerging market in Canada. I had worked with another 7 or 8, 9, I don't remember exactly how much LPs, helping them with a facility, a license, and everything else. And had a good name in the cannabis industry. 2018 or late 2017, countries like Colombia, Portugal, Greece, Macedonia, Zimbabwe, and other places basically copy and paste the Canadian regulation with some minor changes. Having good name in Canada opened the door for me for those projects. Now, currently, I work with only 2 or 3 Canadian companies, but I have a project mostly in Portugal, Greece, Macedonia, Colombia, and a few other places. So basically, I pre-COVID, and right now, recently in the last 2 months, I started to travel again. I do normally 2-3 weeks in Europe, then 1 week in Colombia, then home for 3-4 days, and then back on the road again. So that's basically what I do now. You mentioned, I just came back last Friday from Europe. I have to be in quarantine, so I am in a hotel for another week. I'll be home for 4 days, and then I'm going back to Portugal on the 5th of November.
So for everyone who just heard that, he's only home for 4 days. So make sure you line up because those autographs are only going to be around for 4 days, everybody. Shlomo, that's incredible, man. You said some beautiful things there. I don't want to skip over any of that. But we're going to dive in, but for many people, there's people from across the spectrum on this call, right? And I know you don't like the term master grower, Shlomo, but help us understand what you do. exactly, and the tools that you do these things with?
So I basically I'm a grower, and as I said, or as he said, I don't really like the foreign, master grower thing. I think it's a grower is good enough. I don't have any aspiration to be a master of, philharmonic orchestra. Grower is good enough, and I always say that as a grower, apart from your eyes, you have four tools in your toolbox. So master growers, or whatever they call it in Italian, capo di tutti i capi, or the boss of all the
What,
bosses.
hold on. What is it? What is it? I love it. Capi del Capi. What is it?
Capi del tutto capo.
Capi del tutti capo.
Capo. Yeah.
Capo.
So the boss of all the bosses.
The boss of all the bosses. Okay, tell us more.
So this is just a private joke about the master grower. Or so again, as I said, as a grower, I have only a couple of tools in my toolbox. I can control the light, I can control the weather or the climate, I can control the irrigation and the food. Other than this, nature, with the plants, or anything, whether it's cucumbers or lettuce or anything, nature does it for the past 50 million years, and most probably they will do the same for another 50 million years, way after I'm not here anymore. So I take my job with kind of a grain of humble and humility, and understand my position. So again, going back to my toolbox, I can control only this. The rest will nature will do like they did before in the past 50 million years. I can control the light, I can control the temperature, I can control the humidity, I can control the irrigation and the food. I need to understand or to know what is the best botanical condition that the plants need to be in, and my job is basically to provide the optimum condition for that plant. So we know if it's cannabis, we know it's photoperiodic. If you want, I can dive into this, but we know that light is basically governing the life cycle of the plant. So I can mimic the nature, and basically use the tools that I have in order to create the optimum condition for the plants to thrive. The rest they will do better than I even can explain to them. So I see a lot of people that excuse me, used to have HPS light, and obviously it create a lot of heat, which they had to pump out. And when they moved to LED lights, which they degrade, and we can dive into that. There's a lot of other subsections that we can dive, and we can speak all day. But a lot of people make mistakes and they give the plants light or intensity light of mid-July, but they keep the plants cold as if it's spring or early, March. So you cannot really confuse the plants. If you give them light of mid-August or mid-July, make sure that the temperature is more or less accurate or corresponding with the light. So these are the only tools that, as a grower, master grower, tutti, the couple tutti, whatever, these are the tools that you have, and you have to master them in a way that make the plants feel comfortable. You have to have very, very good eye for details, and you know, uh, just basically do everything that you do with love. I spoke to you earlier that I used to be in Portugal, and I used to export millions of geraniums to Spain and all other places. And I used to go to Seville and look around on the balconies and on the windows and look all those geraniums that falling from the windows there. And I had some kind of satisfaction. I thought maybe some of those geraniums are mine actually, or came from my greenhouses. So it was a kind of satisfaction, but it's even not close or remotely close to the satisfaction that I have now when I creating a product that might help someone with a, cancer pain or any other condition, um, the amount of satisfaction or level of satisfaction that I draw from growing medicinal plant is not even, as I said, remotely close to the amount. And I do it with a lot of, attention to details. I mean, again, you cannot really count the plants. You cannot give them a first name basis. If you have 50,000 plants, you don't really know whose plant is. But if you go into the greenhouses or the condition, you can feel it in your skin if it's comfortable, if it's muggy, if it's not, it's too humid. There's a lot of skills that you develop over the years, and you don't really have to read so much books about it. It's basically just walk the plants, and with time you'll get it.
Wow. I have goosebumps, and I bet many people listening to this have goosebumps as well, because that highlights just this beautiful plant. I mean, you can go into a place and you can feel what that plant's feeling, and you can start to understand if those conditions aren't right. That's incredible, Shlomo. So let's back up for a second, because you mentioned the likes of Tilray and MedRelief, two organizations that were imperative to the growth of Canadian cannabis, as well as obviously leading into recreational legalization, as well as these two organizations doing a lot of work all over the globe, right? So when you said you went into Tilray in 2013, and it's a different, they're 10, 20, 30, 40 plants, and then you help take that to 50,000, 60,000, and it's a completely different world. So help us understand the magnitude of that scale. I mean, to take an operation like that and multiply it, so many things need to be thought about. And so help give us the mindset that you were in when you took that and scaled it, which then led to the foundation of the Canadian cannabis industry and for much of the globe.
Yeah, so I can go into details, but basically, when you go into multiple and very high scale production, when you do 50,000 plants or 10,000 plants or 5,000 plants, you cannot really, as I said, you cannot really give a first name basis to every plant. I used to remember that, when they did the propagation, they had to cut it on an angle, they cut it with a knife, they had to do some couple of scratches on the base of the leaf. That takes about 10 seconds. 10 seconds, if you have 50 plants, it's okay. It's only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, if you move it by 50,000 plants, you're talking about 10 hours, right? 10 hours, it's, especially if you're talking about $15 an hour, now you're talking about $1,500 just for those scratches on the base of the thing. I don't know, and again, we can do the math if it helps or it doesn't help, but basically, you have to start to think of the time or the price tag, because everything you can give it a price tag in respect to labor or manpower. Excuse me if I use the correct terms.
Human power. Yep.
Yeah, human power. So you can allocate a tag price for every activity, whether it takes 1 second or 2 seconds or 10 seconds, multiplied by the amount of plants you do it, and multiplied by the repetition of that. So 10,000 a week. We're talking about now 100 hours a week, times 50, so it's 5,000 hours a year, or so more. So again, calculate the price. If you can shave 1 second from any activity, it tends to be quite a lot of money. They used to transfer the young plants into one 4-inch pot, and then the young plants from 4-inch pot you transfer into the big bucket of 7 liters or 10 liters or whatever it was. Again, that potting and repotting and empty the take of the plants. Use a paper pot. Use mesh pot.
Wow.
So again, those kind of things, the industry is existing, the horticulture industry is existing for the past 50, 70 years. They came a long way since the labor. If you look at robots in Holland and, the magnitude of things that have developed just to save labor, because in North America, in North Europe, labor, just like in Canada, is very, very, very expensive.
Yeah.
If you can save and shave on every activity and multiply by the time that it takes per plant, times amount of plants, times a week, times a year, you end up understanding that buying a robot to clean your pot is definitely cheaper than labor. Any activities that you look in, whether it's again cucumbers, strawberries, or cannabis, labor is consists of about 50 to 60% of your cost. If you can shave 10% of that cost, it's 10% more money in the bank.
That's really powerful, especially for aspiring growers and master growers trying to come into the space, because that is something that you can be great at growing, and you can have this green thumb, and you can feel the plant, but you still need to know the economics of how you scale that, which is so important to be able to forecast that and know the details. Really appreciate you sharing, Shlomo. There's one more question I want to ask, and then I think I see a couple questions coming through. Well, actually, two more questions I'll ask, and then we'll leave a couple minutes for some other questions. The second last one I want to ask is, so Shlomo, if I'm a grower, aspiring grower coming into the space, knowing what you know today, right? Knowing what you know about the global lens of the world, it's funny, I want your life. I want to be traveling all over the world, right?
Very lonely.
I bet. I told you I'm going to come to Portugal when you're there, though. So I'll keep you company.
5th of November.
So what do you tell an aspiring grower, knowing what you know today about how to get to a position that you're in, and has the ability to take an operation and scale it? Like what kind of advice are you giving to yourself?
Like everything in life, whether you work, I don't know, in UPS and other things, do it with love, do the best you can. Your peers will notice it, your colleagues will notice it, your bosses will notice it, you'll be able to advance, you'll again, there's attitude. There's a lot of things that we and you and Mike can learn. There's a difference between learning and understanding the job, and you can be, or I can be, totally stupid and totally clueless of how to do, I don't know, UPS job. But I can have the attitude of, okay, I'm going there, this is my job, I have to unload the truck, I'll do it with care, I do it with love, I'll do the best job I can do. I'll go home satisfied that I gave 100% of myself, because, I don't know, I need a job and I need the money or whatever. But if you do it with your heart and with your, commitment, this is the attitude that will take you forward. And it's okay to be lazy. It's okay to be lazy. Lazy is, if you're lazy and you figure out a way to move the cup from here to here in 5 seconds because you're lazy, you save 10 seconds to the company. So it's okay to be lazy and figure out a way to do the same thing faster and better and cheaper. So lazy it's not such a bad thing. But do it with your, with your heart, do it with commitment, especially now when we're going into the cannabis, and we know that, we're going to produce plants or something that are going to affect the lives of people and health, the quality of life. I also wanted to mention another thing. Obviously, working in Colombia, working in Africa, working in Europe, there's going to be a crunch in the prices. So right now, we still live in kind of a bubble. But if you look at the price of production in Canada, it's about $2.5 a gram. This is the cost of production. If I look at what I can do in the same thing in Colombia, it's 20, 30 cents, right? So what future does your company have if you're not trying to be economic in what you're doing? So again, it's not a matter of making another dollar. It's a matter of survival. If you won't be able to compete on the international market, you won't exist. So, it's not only trying to save 5 cents, trying to save $500 a week. It's, $2,000 a year. It's a bonus. It's for one person. So yeah, think about the global thing. Go ahead. What's your next question?
Well, so on that same vein, I mean, you have such a global perspective, right? And so that's your cost of production is obviously one that's brought up a lot, especially with relevance to Colombia, and our inability to potentially compete on that cost. So what are some other countries doing well in the global cannabis supply chain that individuals who are listening to this should be keeping an eye on, especially from a grower perspective? Obviously Colombia, but help us understand, some other countries that are doing some good things and that we should be paying attention to.
So I think Canada, still I'm Canadian and I'm proud to be Canadian. I come every time, I call it home. When I land in person, I feel great and I'm proud to be Canadian. There's a lot of things, bad things that Canada done. And again, as a Canadian, sometimes I'm ashamed that all those big companies with a valuation of trillions of dollars and don't even bother to give a little bit of money for research, a little bit of money for you know uh, good help. So if I can give example of Israel, in Israel, the government kind of incent or force any growers to produce, to give each grower has to give some kind of small amount of their production for research, for hospitals, for old age home. This is very, very, very good for the community, for the society. It also helps on the long run for those companies to collect data and say, okay, this is variety that has very good, based on 30,000 patients, it's good for this and good for that. It's not good for that and good for that. So again, I am ashamed that none of those Canadian companies, again, that have trillions of dollars, again, they claim that they have, they haven't did or haven't done so much for the local or immediate community or participate in any clinical research in Canada. So this is one thing. Uh, Portugal is a very interesting place. I live there. I speak Portuguese fluently. Um, they are a little bit much better off in terms of licensing. But for example, they want to make sure that none of your product go into the black market. So they want you to have what they call a LOI or letter of intent or uptake agreement with some other importer that basically guarantee that he's going to buy from you your 500 kilos or 2,000 kilos or whatever you want, you assume that going to produce. Based on that LOI, the government or the Infamed, that's the division in the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, sorry, that in Portugal that gives a license. So based on those LOI, the government or Infamed will give you the license to grow X amount of product. This is very good because once you have the LOI, once you have the uptake agreement, you know that assuming that you grow up to certain quality, you know that you have already sold your product and there's money going to come. I'm not going to mention name, but there's a couple of companies here in Canada that they produce tons and, just ridiculous amount of product. They don't have market for it because, they force to sell it for, $2 a gram.
Yeah.
Till we buy it from them, Tilray ship it to Portugal, make it EU GMP, and sell it throughout Europe. So knowing the market, be prepared for what it is EU GMP, and be able to step into the market. I'm not saying that the Canadian market is doomed, but it's going to be very, very
difficult to compete.
Competitive.
Yeah. That was a common theme in mine and Eden conversation as well. Just how much EU GMP certification is going to be a big thing and something that we're going to need to ramp up a little bit. Shlomo, I really appreciated the time, my friend. I love talking with you. Lots of good conversation has come out of this. If anyone has any questions, and I know we didn't get to a few questions, I told you I was going to hog Shlomo's time. Please, again, through email or through, the CanMar link, please email Shlomo and I some questions, some follow-ups, and we promise we'll try and get to them together. For everyone who's watching, I hope, you got to learn a little thing or two about Shlomo's life and how he looks at plants and cultivation. And again, thank you so much for joining us, Shlomo. Anything you want to add, just closing thoughts or anything for the group?
Again, I am very excited. I'm really happy to be part of this, dynamic market. It's so much more opportunities. I think we are on the tip of the iceberg. Europe is 600 million people. It's bigger than Canada and America combined. They have the same issues with aging population. Aging population is now considered to be 60% of the cannabis market in Europe. So, places like France coming on the board, Italy is coming on board. So again, if you're up to the quality and up to the standard and you have to what it takes, if you have EU GMP, you have on your tip of your fingers 600 million people all the way from Poland to Norway. So just keep the quality. If you have to remember one thing, don't compromise on quality, don't compromise on compliance,
yeah,
and don't compromise on safety. I want everyone that in the industry to go home safe, have fun, but do the things right and do it with quality. Don't compromise on quality and compliance.
Beautifully said. Beautiful way to end. Couldn't agree more. And I, Casey, I know you're on the call here. I know you feel the same way. I know everyone feels the same way. So Shlomo, thank you, good sir. We really, really appreciate the time. And I will personally be in touch with you later on. Take care. Okay. Talk soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers.
Thank you so much, Shlomo. Thank you, Shahbaaz, once again.